6 characters, 1 combined form, 6 minutes? Let's go! Why I picked the Jin Jiang knockoff of Generation Toys Gravity Builder as my first video was specifically because I wanted to start at the bottom. The first figure I got out of the box, I was actually impressed. It had good posability. It was, the joints, everything was stiff on it, nice and tight. It had good light piping. I really didn't mind it at all. I thought this is actually a really good start. The feet were actually really stable. I liked the little piece on the back just to give it an extra sturdiness. The weak point of this toy really is in the other modes, specifically this alt mode, this translucent piece of plastic sticking out. That's just going to break immediately, so can't recommend that. Overall, this toy best in the robot mode. Which brings us to the Hook ripoff, better known by the manual as JJ625D. By far the strongest robot mode figure of this entire set. Hands down. The feet, arm, head, everything about it. Strongest paint jobs, strongest posability, sturdiness, everything. Really enjoyed this toy the most in robot mode, indoors, outdoors, and all kinds of, with his accessories on or off, he worked really, really well. He's not perfect, of course, just like the other toys. He's really light and can get blown away by even the slightest of breezes. The alt mode works pretty good. The housing unit for the head actually works really well. There's really only one thing keeping this alt mode for recommendation, and that's this translucent piece of plastic that would probably be broken after using it a while, so full recommendations for the robot mode. We've got to the third one now. This guy, I believe, is the Bone Crusher. He has light piping like the rest of them, but that lid on the top, even though you can lift it, the light doesn't get in there really well, so it's one of the worst ones. It's got light piping, it's not great, but the feet are really good, still really sturdy. It's the same feet that Scavenger had. The only problem with this toy is the arms are super floppy, so you're only got hands down or hands up. The alt mode is pretty good, except that top piece is really weak. It's just going to snap off. Hard to recommend playing with it in this mode. Definitely its best mode is the robot mode, even as flimsy as the hands are. And that brings us, of course, to the Mixmaster. This toy I wanted to love. I like how you can change the back pieces around in different configurations, so he looks almost like a different character. In this case, my favorite version, it looks like he's got wings and kind of like a jetpack and can fly, which I think is sweet. His feet super suck. And legs ruin it entirely. Can't recommend him as a robot. His strongest mode, however, is his vehicle mode. Overall, not a strong toy, but still, this is by far his best mode. Not so good as a combiner limb, though. He just sort of falls apart. And that brings us to Scrapper. Really, I don't have anything good to say about this toy. Everything about him is garbage. His face has got the worst paint job. You can see right through it in direct light. However, as a alt mode, he is by far the strongest one. This is the best alt mode. If all of the limbs were as well made as this one, again, different review, just like if all of the toys, the robot modes were like Hook and the alt modes were like this guy, this would have been an entirely different review. Which brings us to the last character. So far I had 3 weak ones, 3 good toys, 2 weak toys. And this one could have been, the deciding factor. And at first it was actually really disappointing. His head was floppy. It was hard to get his head to look upwards. So I had to tighten that with a screw, but his feet also needed to be fixing. Really not a strong toy as a robot. The alt mode was actually pretty good. I'd say second to scrapper. Just the top portion of it is pretty weak and the back doesn't look great, so not a very attractive piece. Overall, his best mode would be his combined mode, which brings us to the combined mode. I was really happy with this. When I put it together, I thought it was going to be a giant piece of janky garbage that was going to fall apart, and it's still standing to this day in my bedroom. We put it through all kinds of stress tests, banging materials around it, and it stood. I was quite surprised by it. I don't like how top-heavy it is. Kind of looks like, well, I don't know, just a little chesty, but it's kind of neat, photography adding depth and stuff. I get that, but just kind of weird how much it protrudes out. Love that he has an accessory. He actually has multiple accessories. I just show this hook a lot because this is the only one he can actually use. Because this friggin' gun, I really wanted to like it, but his hand can't hold it. It just doesn't fit properly. There are tabs in it, but it doesn't fit. So here you go. I just threw it on his shoulder mounted rocket. Boom. Just do that instead. All in all, I'm happy with it, but I can't recommend it to everybody. It's going to be for people who want to play with something outside or use it to practice customizing it, or, using half of them in the robot mode and half of them in their alt mode maybe. Those would be the recommendations. Those would be the sort of scenarios I can think of, but overall, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Next episode, we're cleaning out my closet.